Hello, and welcome to another BZPower set review. I am BZPower reporter Xccj, and today we are reviewing one of the new LEGO art mosaics. This one is 31197, Marilyn Monroe, Danny Warhol design. So the art stuff is basically dot mosaics. It's a very simple process. The cool thing is the designs they came up with. This one is featuring Andy Warhol and his Marilyn Monroe designs. You can see three different colors down here as well as the main one up here. So they include pieces in the colors to make all of these. So pretty interesting. It's a big box. It's a $100 set. So pretty sizable, a little big for my viewing area. The four designs. They also have a soundtrack that they're advertising on the website. So I'll listen to that and let you know if there's anything good. Overall mosaic, it's a cool art piece, but I'm interested in doing mosaics, so wanted to see what we have. Looking on the inside, we have a lot of 1x1 tiles. So the colors are black, got a little bit of dark gray, magenta, and these four colors are the primary ones that you could swap out, and they come in the same number of pieces. So you got light pink, dark pink, looks like medium azure, and classic yellow. Down here you have the base plates. So this is a brand new piece. It's a 16x16 plate, but it has a lot of empty space, so easy to put on something and make connections at the bottom. The edges have Technic connections, so that's good. So this is mostly small pieces. Mostly here you have bricks, some tiles, a couple of long plates, some of these to help lock the frames in. But for now, start the build. So straight away for the build, you're building one of the squares, 16x16. There are going to be 9 of them. The instructions are pretty simple. There's only one page. It has the colors down on it, and the colors are actually numbered on the instruction booklet. It helps make it easier to decide, especially when you're going between some of the pinks, which are very similar. Dark pink and dark magenta in particular look very similar on the printed page, so having a number to differentiate them helps. One thing I'm noticing on the build is the base plates are black, and a lot of the tiles are black. And placing black on black, especially these tiles, very hard to see. They just kind of blend in. The design here, the build varies a little bit because they don't tell you how to put them in. So what I'm kind of going for is I'm kind of doing all one color at once. I'll find this big shape of a particular color, like dark pink or black, and I'll build that shape out and kind of build the borders. And when it's one of the ones that has like a lot of empty space that's being used to fill in the center, I'll kind of do the outline of it and then fill in the center. But first I start with like the little nitty-gritty detail designs, and usually you're seeing those in gray, you're seeing those in yellow with the hair, and a few other places where it's only kind of like you're building lines as opposed to big shapes. And so that's how I started, and that's kind of how I've done mosaics in the past. But needless to say, this is very tedious. You're putting down each piece individually. 48x48 is 2,304 pieces, and that's just the studs. And then at the end, you'll build the border and kind of connect the tiles on the back. But that's a lot of pieces, and it gets a little tedious and it makes your fingers a little sore. The build for me took about 2 hours, so it's a lot to do. And mosaics-wise, for LEGO, this is kind of a small mosaic. It's a 48x48. For a starter set, this is already $100, so it's a fairly decent size. Anything smaller, you're going to lose out on a lot of the details. So it's kind of necessary that this is kind of the smallest size you can get for a decent set while still still remaining true to a cool art piece. And the idea, of course, is that if you want to build bigger, buy more of these sets. And again, it's tedious, but they're kind of promoting this as a relaxed build. So they don't want you to build it very fast. Just every once in a while, build a couple of tiles, work your way through the project. Don't quite do the speed build that I was trying to do here. But you can build it at your own pace. And an interesting thing is LEGO is advertising a podcast to go along with this build, and it's on their main site for LEGO Art. But for this particular one, it was a podcast about Andy Warhol. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't really know a whole lot about Andy Warhol. It's a name that I've heard a couple of times, and I recognize some of his paintings, but I'm not the big art enthusiast, so I am not super familiar with his backstory. First, they interviewed 4 people who either learned about Andy Warhol himself or were artists who did stuff similar to him. And they talked a lot about like his history, how he kind of got into the program, how he kind of created this persona, and how he was always trying to challenge the art world, I think is the term they used. So yeah, it's a very interesting discussion. They also talked to a couple of the LEGO designers who go into a little bit of the details about designing this particular set. And they talked about kind of the complications of designing a pixelated image and being so focused on the little nitty-gritty details that you lose focus of the big picture and you have to kind of pull back and look at it. They also discussed colors and why they chose their particular options. In particular, the light flesh color, the kind we're used to seeing for minifigures. They used that a couple times. Because of the way they reuse colors on this, the 4 primary colors can be mixed and swapped around on basically the same design, but you just switch out the colors. The flesh color looks very good when it's flesh, but when it's hair or the background color, it looks very awkward. And they also talked about how they had to discuss which blue they wanted to use. Obviously, on this example I'm building, I didn't use the blues. So it was an interesting thing to listen to. Unfortunately, it was only about an hour and a half. So I still had a plate left to build and the border, the finish, by the time they finished up. So I wasn't quite building fast enough, but it was still a very informative talk. And if you're interested in the art history behind this model, it's worth pulling up because, honestly, most LEGO sets, even the big ones, you don't generally get that kind of in-depth discussion about the design process. So I appreciate that very much. So here is the final product. It's pretty well put together. This one uses the pinks and the yellow hair, so no azures here, but does a pretty good job. I think the design has enough of the details with the lips and the eyes and details in the hair. And down here you have an optional signature block you can put on here. It's pretty sturdy, so it has a 2-brick in plate and a tile on the border, so fairly sturdy. And the back is nicely connected. You have some extra plates here so it can be flush. And you have these hanger pieces, so you could easily get a nail and hang it on the wall. So one of the main features of these mosaics is that you can take them apart and build another design. One of the problems, though, is you have to take it apart, and that is just as tedious as building it. The tile pieces are on there very tight, and those round tiles are pretty hard to take off. They do provide you with a new brick separator, which is a little bit wider than the usual one, and that helps you get more rows off, but it's still a hard process, and my hands got really beat up after I took off the whole thing. And my brick separator also got pretty bashed up, and that was quite surprising for just one set. The tiles also like to fly off and go everywhere when you take them off. So I have a feeling that this process is supposed to be a one-time thing. You pick the design you want, you build it. You shouldn't take it apart because it's going to be a lengthy process. But if you want to do your own thing, you have to take it apart. And that's what I did here. So I like doing my own Bionicle mosaic. So my first challenge here is to build a mosaic using these pieces. And one thing they don't provide you with is a kind of virtual how to build a mosaic generator or something. There are a lot of fan-made models. You could do Photoshop as well, which has some features, but they kind of leave that to you to figure out on your own. And I have a old program that I use, but it's a little bit out of date. But there are programs that can match up the Lego color to the picture you want to turn into a mosaic. Or if you're really talented, you could do it by eye. I'm not that great, but I do go in and fix the little details when I pre-plan my mosaics. This one is particularly difficult because you have a limited color palette from the set. But I did find that I can supplement my colors by using some of the pieces from the dot sets, particularly the extra dot packs have a lot of the blues and coral colors, so I was able to use that to add to my picture and make it a little bit more exciting. And here is the final result, a 2002 Hau Krano mosaic featuring a classic Bionicle image. And you can do your own Bionicle images, or you could do some other images. There's a lot of creativity you can have here. And for a $120 set, I believe, it makes for a pretty decent value if you want to get interested in mosaics. Granted, that's not going to appeal to everybody, but for those of you who want to get into doing this kind of artwork, it's fun. It's cool to come up with your own 2D images and see what you can make. Well, thanks again for another BZPower set review. We're going to have a couple other BZPower set reviews coming up, so stay tuned to the front page. No more mosaics. We're done with this. I probably talked your ear off enough. So, yeah, thanks again for watching, and look forward to seeing if anybody makes mosaics and posts their designs online.